Good morning. So I've had a request from a viewer, I'm assuming a subscriber, but it could just be somebody who's tuning in and watching out for BCF, that asked me if I could do a tutorial on how to make a team in BCF 2. And of course, BCF 2 is now available in book free. So the first thing I would suggest is now go grab this PDF. It's free. I'll put the link to this video description below, because that would be the one thing that you, with the free charts and the free stuff, you would not have had. But the book has been made available now free, so this will certainly walk you through it. But let's do this. So BCF2, nothing rule-wise has changed except there's now a run and pass chart. First caveat is this is not a replay game, so I do not teach you how to make historical teams. So if that's what you're looking for, you're going to have to make them yourself. You're going to have to, you're literally going to have to use subjective until I can come up with a, so when I create historical teams for BCF, I use a myriad of statistical things, and they make basically a Venn diagram that then tells me, informs me how to rate a position group. And that's why I haven't done a historical team creation doc, because I use a myriad of examples to decide whether a team is, say, a -2 or a 0, whatever. So it's not something I can readily write up. And because BCF is not a replay game, I'm not really wanting to push that, because it ultimately is, people aren't going to be satisfied with it as a replay game, because it's not a replay game. So I haven't been determined to spend a lot of time creating historical way you can make historical teams. So that's just my prerogative, because it's my time, and it does take me time, because I literally scrutinize about 8 different offensive variables and 8 different defensive variables per position group. So it's just not like a normal formula. It's just not an algorithm that's simple, right? Okay. So where you'll find team creation is after off-season, right? And the off-season is before it in the game, because there are teams already in the game. So what we're going to do first, and it says right here we're going to start a new season, but here's what we're going to do. Big Country Football team creation, and I did a whole walkthrough here, but we're going to do it again together. So the first thing you're going to want to do is make your kick returning grade. And remember, BCF uses static special teams. However, there is a special teams variance chart that allows you to have your special teams variable. So the first thing we're going to do, and I'll just pull up here and I'm going to call this team the Thunder. No, I'm going to call this team, let me think here, the Everdell Warriors. Okay, for now. And we're going to go and do our kick return grade. So that's, it says right here, let's pull this over, is 2d6 plus 12. So I roll 10 plus 12 is 22. All right. Our punt grade, punting, PT, right? Our PT average, right? And again, that's right here. PT average is 38, is going to be 2d6 plus 33. So I have rolled 7 and 33 is 37 and 33 is 40. Is that right? Yep. So 40 is my average for my punter, which is NFL average over the course of time, pretty much, is 39 to 40. All right, my punt return average is going to be 2d6 plus 2. Whoops. 2d6 plus 2. Ooh, 7 plus 2 is 9. That is the average basically in NFL history as well. And my field goal range is 2d6 plus 2. So this will be my place kicker's field goal attempt, right? And that's going to be 2d6 plus 6, right? So that's 7 and 6 is 13. Not great. And let's go ahead, and it says here on his PAT, let me see here, PAT is 2d6, 1 to 2, okay, right, his PAT is 119, so PAT is always 19, remember 20 is a block, basically. So my special teams, right there, done. Now we got to go ahead and do the defensive interception return, defensive IR. right? And the defensive IR is 2d6 plus 10. And this we want big, baby. 2d6. Oh, 4 plus 10 is 14. That's about average. 12 is average in NFL history. 12 to 22, right? We're at 14, right? So there we go. We have got all of our extraneous static things done, right? So there's Everdell, right? Now, as far as kick returners, punter, I'm just going to name him Joe Fielding. That's my punter. My place kicker will name Mark Weber. Right, my kick return / punt return man will be Frank Wells. So I'm just making up names now, right? And they're great for Fielding, right? Weber is 1 to 13, 19, which is true for everybody, by the way. So that would be okay. And Frank Wells, kick return, punt return, we know is 22 and 9. And again, right now there is no touchdown number here for those guys. So when you create a team, you don't get a touchdown rating. In the preseason of the offseason the next year, you could earn a touchdown adjustment. But when you're creating teams from scratch, you're not going to get a TD, right? So that's just part of the limitations of making an expansion team or creating your own universe. You could come up with a die roll that determines whether these guys have a touchdown chance, right? And then again, for interception returns, it's just 14. All right, so that's the top half. So let's go down here and see what we do now for the remainder. All right, now we have to rate the actual units. All units are rated 0 to start. Quarterback, block. Okay, so let's pull it up. Let's get down to the nitty gritty. Quarterback, right? Back and receiving core, and then we have our DLs, our linebackers, and our DBs. Right, our quarterback. So now I get to choose. They all start at 0, and it is a zero-sum team creation, which means your ratings have to equal out to 0 when you create a team. So if I give my quarterback a +2, I have to have at least 2 bad ratings or 1 bad rating somewhere. So you have to equal out to 0 as we do this thing, right? So this particular team, I might go ahead and roll my coach. I might go ahead and roll my coach up before I do this, because if I have a running coach, I'm gonna want to put more points in back, or I want to avoid a negative in back. So the Everdell Warriors head coach, I'm gonna say, is John Stevenson. And I'm gonna roll for him right now. And that, by the way, has been added to this version. There was no coach rating in the original, so we're gonna roll, right? And I'm going to roll. If I rolled a 5. So 1 to 4, he's a running coach. So that's kind of a big deal. So I want to make sure if I'm going to put negative grades. So he runs 1 to 4. That's a pretty hefty amount. So I definitely don't want my back to be a negative. So my quarterback, though, we're going to be a pound the rock kind of team, -2, which means I get a bonus. I can either make either negatives for defenses, or I can put my back at +2, right? So what and you cannot put a 3. You can only go from negatives to is the best you can do to +2. You cannot have a 3 rated player to start your career, right? 3 is supposed to be really rare. That's the teams that featured Lawrence Taylor or Dan Marino in '84. You know, they're going to be record-setting seasons. They're going to be guys that literally changed games. And but I don't want to get too crazy here, because I want some negative on defense. So back, I'm going to give my back a +1, and I have to zero-sum this. So that means I get a negative, and I'm going to give my linebacker a -1. Okay, right there. So right now I'm zero-summed. I've got a plus here, and I'm allowed a negative here, but that's technically positives against that negative. All right, receivers. I'm not going to pass much, so I'm going to go ahead and give my receivers a -1. And again, zero-sum, I'm going to give my big boys a -1. And that means my DBs are stuck at 0. For now, right? So there's my team. It's rated. I'm technically ready to go. However, there's one final thing you must do. Once you have rated and balanced all ratings, your team should tally out to a 0. Teams are given a 2-point bonus to change any rating, but you cannot be a a plus, beyond a +2 or -2, all right? So what does that mean? So I'm 0 now. Now I get a 2-point bonus. Now I can use that 2-point bonus to make the DBs a -2. I could use that bonus to negate my quarterback's -2. I could use that bonus to negate my receivers 1 and give the other one to my back, something like that, right? So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure my quarterback's not horrific, and I'm going to give that bonus. So now there I am. So here's my debut team. Now what I do is I name my starters, but now that's it. Game done. You've made your team. You're ready to play. Now it's about naming them. And so what I like to do is I like to have a starting quarterback, and I like to give him a number grade. Before the game, I roll this die 6, and if it falls in that range, he's starting. All right, let's say my quarterback is Jay Howard, right? And QB2 would be 5 and 6. That is B Payne, right? And then I'm gonna do at least 3 backs, right? So I usually have a halfback, a fullback, and an RB, right? The RB comes off the bench. And these, I rate these for how often they touch the ball for running, right? So running, it's going to be, this is just to assign them, if you're doing the quick play, touchdowns, fumbles, etc. However, when you're playing the game, you can roll this too to tell you who carried the ball for 4 yards or whatever. So I use this for distribution. Now, we are a running team. My backs, remember, these are all backs. So all of my backs are going to be a +2. Right, this is just who would get statistical notice, or who would be allotted the stats or the whatever. So my halfback, do I want this team to be an I formation team with a dominant fullback, or do I want it to be a pro set where both backs carry the ball equally? That's what we're going to do. We're going to go 1 to 3. I want my fullback to be 4 and 5. Whoops. Let's go back. 4 and 5. I think it's still recording. And that means my third back coming off the bench will be 6, right? Let's give him a name. Let's go J. Lincoln, P. Hines, and Carl Olson. How about that, right? So there's my backs, right? And remember, it doesn't matter as a unit, counting, again, their offensive line is considered part of the whole package. So this would be my O-line and my backs together combined for a strong unit, right? Okay, let's go ahead and do my receivers. And receivers should always be your split end, your flanker, and your tight end, right? And then, of course, we can have our what's called the F receiver, right? And remember, RB3 is usually your H receiver, right? Or your slot receiver, if depending on whether you want to, right? Whether you want to have a 4 receiver set, 2 tight ends. It doesn't make any difference. It's up to you. But again, I'm going to say 1 and 2. My receivers are -1, so I don't want to be too. I don't want to get too bold here. I'm going to go probably like 1 and 2. L. Paul will be that receiver's name, and then the flanker, I'm going to say 3 is Mike Stone, and then I'm going to say 4 and 5 for my tight end is going to be Everett Boone, and then I want my F receiver. This would be your slot or your second tight end or whatever. I'm going to give him that 6 rating. And let's see here. Let's go Terry Jones. And so that's just, now you could also assign, if you don't want to have, you want to have your backs catch. Remember, the game will tell you whether it's RC or backs catching the ball on the chart. So if it says back, then you roll the back number to see who catches. So Lincoln's going to tote the rock, but he's also going to catch more passes out of the backfield, right? It's going to say back on a reception or receiving core, right? So remember, these are backs, right? And this is receiving core, right? And then your quarterbacks. And that's it. It's literally done. Now, again, I also do this for my defensive. I also do this for my defensive players, right? So then I'll do DL, and then I generally want, if it's a 3-4, I'm going to have 3 DLs. So let's do that. Let's say it's a 3-4. And for sacks, I'm going to have 1 to 3 for my left end, and that's going to be Rick Welch, right? And then I'm going to have DL. This guy's going to be a 4 nose tackle, right? 4, and that's going to be Benny Steins, just making up names. And then my third DL will be 5. And this would be, by the way, this would be DL for sacks, right? So you roll a D6, and it's going to tell you who's landed sacks here, DLs. And this will be Peter Roman. Now, why did I only make there? Because I'm going to have a linebacker for the 6th number. So I'm going to have an outside linebacker, 6, coming off the edge to get sacks. And that's going to be, matter of fact, let me do this. Boom, boom, boom. So it's easier to read. Right. And then this will be Barney King coming off the edge, right? And then what I do for interceptions, because you're not going to see a lot of DLs get picks, I do interceptions, or I should say LBs, right? And then again, LBs, we're going to have that inside linebacker. And again, I start over with the numbers. Let's say 1. This would be for INTs, right? Linebackers. This would be 1. For, let's go, Hank Leems, right? And inside linebacker, 2, Fred Grant. And then outside linebacker, this guy is going to be 3, right? And that's going to be John Smith, right? And then, of course, we continue on to DBs. And then I'm going to have my cornerback for Victor Riley. And I'm going to have my free safety 5 and 6, Nate Martin, right? And then my strong safety, he won't have a chance to pick it off, and he'll be dash. Let's see here, Greg Williams. Starts, but unfortunately didn't rack up any interceptions. And then I'm going to have Luke Everson. And that's it. I have literally made my starters. So this is just for allocation. You can name them anything you want. You can get many numbers you want. It's just for your stat allocation. If you're trying to make historical teams, then you're going to want to kind of grade that out. And by the way, you don't have to use a D6. You could use percentile dice, so you could really get granular. If you were trying to make historical teams, I would suggest you use a D20 or a D100, because you can then account for every interception, every sack, etc. by just rolling a D100. It'll tell you who gets the sack, the interception, the tackle, whatever. So you can get really granular with a D100. I use a D6 because the game states you need 2D20 and a D6, so I try to stick with the dice that are in the base game. But again, you could get as granular with your roster as you wanted to, right? By doing D100, you can literally assign, let's say this is Barry Sanders, and he accounted for 47% of the Lions' touches in 1991. I would have the quarterbacks would be who started 98% to 2%, whatever. Then Barry might literally be 46% of the offense, 1 to 46. He touches it on a pass or a run. Or I could just do, he ran the ball, 78% on running, and then put him in the receiving column, right? So that's it. I mean, that's to make the game, you roll up your static special teams, right? And then you have to do a zero-sum setup to build your teams. So you really don't have any, there's no random here. The random is this. Here, you're going to have to thoughtfully decide, if you're making a 16-team league, you're going to have to sit down and say, well, who is the Los Angeles Warriors? And do they have a star quarterback? Then give them a +2 and give him a name. But then you got to take 2 off, so you got to have 2 bad scores somewhere, right? So I might then have a deal of +2, because that's not what you want, right? But that's it. It is a zero-sum a team generation. It's not a random generation. Once the teams are done, and this is what I would do for those who want some, a semblance of outside of your control in a way, or if you want to see if a team can get a +3 or a -3 before you start your career. Once all your teams are done, or once a team's done, you can then go up right? I'm going to minimize this. You can then go up and actually put those teams through the off season, right? Before you start your league, right? So then the off season. Now what's going to happen is again, there's no random here. The only random roll that occurs in the off season is the preseason tables to change your punter, your kicker, your punt return, your PK, and your interception. So you can roll up your team here, right? With those, you can roll up your team with these, or you could just use to roll up your offense. Just use the preseason simulation, and this will tell you what your punter grade is, your kick returner grade, and there's a chance then you could have a returns. You could roll up your punt returner grade for every team and there might be a chance of him having a touchdown. Roll up your PK, roll up your IR, and so you could do this. You could do your special teams with either method. Okay, the reason I use this method is it guarantees that teams are going to fall into averages, and it also guarantees nobody has a touchdown advantage when you start your league. But that's up to you if you want to have random creation. Remember, creating teams is a zero-sum. You're not going to have any random chance. So if you don't like that, you don't want to create your teams manually, you can come up with some way to randomly roll up a rating chart, right? I'm not going to do it. The goal for this was that people are thoughtful about building their teams, building their league, and then dive in. And then in the off season, you put everyone through this paradigm, right? Which means, again, you have to make decisions. Well, actually, it tells you what you have to do as players regress, and then it tells you what you can do to improve players and swap players. But it's a paradigm. It is not a random set of tables, and it is a deliberate design. I have designed BCF deliberately, and then I want team creation and off season to be deliberate. And part of that goal is the game is automated, but part of that goal is I had hoped there would be people who would actually play in leagues together where they are owners of their teams and they go through the process of building their team. They go through the process of the off season for their team, but a commissioner plays all the games automated. So for those who are familiar with what I did for our Patriot Football League using Grid Zone, my human owners were involved in drafting and making decisions about their coaching, etc. However, I played all the games because Grid Zone's automated. And so this was very much like that, where you could have a human owner in your neighborhood, you and 6 of your buddies, you make 6 teams, and one of you is the commissioner and rolls all the games out, and the other 5 or 6 of you actually build your team and then run your teams through the off season. And then you could, you could share this with a group without necessarily it being a head-to-head game, right? However, now that I've added run and pass to BCF2, this could be a great head-to-head game because you can call run or pass. The opponent has to sit and humbly watch to see if you chew up their defense, which is fun, right? But there you have it. And by the way, the book's free here now, so anyone who's got the BCF charts but doesn't know how to make teams or what to do, team-wise, the book is now here, folks. So this was the book that was for sale about a couple of weeks ago, and I have removed this book for sale and I put it here free of charge. A chance to dive in and enjoy BCF football too, free of charge. But there you have it. Hopefully this helps. But we have made a team, and really, to be honest with you, we made a team quick. What took me the longest was deciding the names of the players and setting up the stat allocation, right? So there you have it, folks. And then if you want to run these teams through the off season before you start, if you want to vary them even more, I would suggest you build their identity and you play your first season and find out, what their identity is. And as you notice, I rolled up my coach before I decided where to place those points, right? But you may have coaches that are passers that have a bad quarterback, so that's fun too. But there you have it, folks. There's a tutorial on how to make BCF2 teams. Good day.